Hi, I'm Liz Hirschnoff-Talley, and welcome to the Capital Coffee Connection podcast. And I am really excited today because I have Congressman Buddy Carter, who is from Georgia's 1st District. I have never in person met with this congressperson. We did a Newsmax piece with Eric Bollings on the balance. And the subject that day was really about hostages. My niece was a hostage in Gaza for 51 days. And what I saw when he was speaking and he talked about Abigail, my niece, in such a beautiful way was somebody that had a heart, is a leader. And so I thought this was a great opportunity. So we invited him to join, and here he is today. And one last thing I'll say, which was I had spoken with another Congresswoman, Lisa Blunt Rochester, and I said, oh, I had this really good interview with one of your colleagues. And she said, who is it? And I said, Buddy Carter. And she said, oh, my buddy. And I loved it. And while we don't talk about politics and policy, what we do talk about is heart and humanity. And the thing that I learned after that was the work that you and Congressman Blunt Rochester have done, which is not a partisan issue, but is Telehealth Modernization Act, which is really beautiful. And I'd love for you to, in a minute, tell us about that, because it's really about helping people. And that's why you're a leader. So that's my way of introducing you and saying thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here. Exciting.
Thank you. So let's start with that whole concept of the work that you and a Democrat are doing, which is really why you're there. And we'll talk a little bit more later about that, your medical history and your being a pharmacist and all that. But what is it that this act does? Because it helps everyone.
Well, it does. And obviously, we all know what happened during the pandemic. We all know that a lot of things changed during the pandemic. But there were some good things that came out of the pandemic. And telehealth, I think, is an example of one of those good things. There was a national newspaper headline that said that telehealth had advanced more in a week than it had in the last 10 years. And it did, because it became an integral part of our healthcare system. When we were all closed up and not able to meet, a lot of people went to telehealth and telemedicine in order to get healthcare services. And that's why Lisa, and listen, Lisa has been such a great partner. And she's on one side of the aisle, I'm on the other side of the aisle. But we both want the same thing. And when it comes down to it, when you talk about healthcare, all of us, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or independent, we want the same thing. We want accessible, affordable, quality health care. That's what everybody wants. And Lisa's been a great partner, and we've worked together on a number of bills and a number of pieces of legislation in energy and commerce to advance health care, and I think to make it more accessible. And that's what telehealth does. It makes it more accessible, particularly for those in rural areas, particularly for those who can't travel as much. But it also solves another problem that we have in healthcare, and that is the shortage of providers, because this gives us an opportunity for people in some areas that don't necessarily have a specialist to see a specialist through telehealth.
Yeah. So you're from Georgia. Thank you for explaining that, because I think it's important for people to really understand the work and that it does actually affect people that need the help. You're from Georgia. Talk about what makes Georgia special and the people of Georgia are special.
Well, it's my home. It's where I've lived all my life, and it's an honor to serve in Congress, but it's a special honor when you get to represent the area you grew up in and you lived in all your life, and that's why it's so special to me and such an honor for me. I love Georgia. I've been in Georgia all my life. As I say, I grew up there, went to school there, graduated from the University of Georgia, go Dogs, and I served in the Georgia State Legislature. That was quite an honor in itself, but I love the South. I think it's I try not to profile. I don't, and I know the North is different, but at the same time, I just love the South. I love our traditions. I love our food, and I just love everything about it.
Yeah.
Particularly where I live, because I live on the coast of Georgia, and I have the honor and privilege of representing the entire coast of Georgia, over 100 miles of pristine coastline. I tell people all the time, 435 districts in the United States, and I get to represent the very best one.
I love it. And you were born in Port Wentworth and grew up there. And what
Yes.
was it like growing up there? And tell us a little bit about what your family was like, your parents, what they did.
Well, it was very industrial in Pula. In fact, if you go there today, you'll see that it's pretty much, well, the area that I grew up in is pretty much turned into an industrial area. Mine's the American story and the American dream. My grandfather was a sharecropper. He didn't own the land; he worked the land. I can remember my father taking me down the dirt road when we went to family reunion and saying, we used to live here, we used to live here, we used to live here. They lived wherever the land was they were working. And
Mhm.
and my father left the country and Cobbtown, Georgia, and Tattnall County, and went to the city and went to Savannah, which Fort Plymouth is outside of Savannah, and got a job at Union Bank in Fayetteville. And he told me, he said, when I got that job, I took every penny I had in my pocket and I put gas in my car and I rolled the window down and I just rode around hollering, I got a job at Union Bank. I got a job at Union Bank. He was so
Yeah.
happy to have that job. He worked shift work, he worked hard, and provided for my sister and I was the first one in my family and my extended family to go to college and to graduate from college. I left home the day I turned 18, not because, oh, I'm 18, I'm out of here, but it just so happened to be. That's when I went off to college. I swore up and down I'd never go back. And of course, the first thing I did when I graduated from college was go straight back home. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I know that your first job was you were a newspaper delivery person, young boy, and this was your way of working and also making some money. You're a businessman that went into politics and into public service, but was this your first entry into making a living and having to do what I saw customer service?
yeah, and I did have a paper route at one time, but I always considered my first job to be a landscape engineer. I cut
Mm.
grass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another one of the very important jobs when you're young.
Exactly, exactly. But it taught you the value of hard work. It taught you the value of saving and making sure that you were saving your money. And certainly it was important for me to have that experience. But obviously my dad had a big influence on my life. Another important lesson he taught me was that whenever I went off to college, when I came back, he actually got me a job in that paper. I don't know how familiar people are with paper mills, but there's a place called a brook beater, which is at the bottom of the paper machine. And it's not hell, but you can see hell from there. It is hot. And my dad had the wisdom to get me a job working on that brook beater. I couldn't get back to school fast enough, I tell you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you get those jobs which also make you want to go to school, but it also gives you this understanding. So no matter what you do, you understand like the hardest jobs that people could have, so you can actually relate to them. My dad, gave me the hardest jobs when I went to work for him when I was 13, and I just did them. But then I look back and I'm like, boy, he gave me the worst possible jobs. You know?
I think they do it intentionally.
Yeah, yeah. So I know that you went to school in Georgia and all that. And could you talk a little bit about sports and how that influenced your life? Because I know you played a lot of sports and perhaps teachers or coaches that were influential. Because what I've learned from a lot of leaders is the importance of teachers and mentors as they grew up.
Well, I love sports and I wanted to be a football star. Unfortunately, not only was I short, I was also slow. So it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
But I don't know that anybody loved it any more than I did. And it's still do. I still follow all of them closely. Football, basketball, baseball, played a lot of tennis. Just love them all. It did have a big influence, but thank you for mentioning teachers because, I think back and I read something one day that said that, you may not remember who won a certain sporting event a year, but you always remember who your teachers were. And I do. I remember my elementary school teachers, Miss Carter, Miss Cook, Miss Lane, Miss Toot, Mr. Usher, and I just remember all of them. And they had such a big influence on my life, and I was so blessed to have greater teachers. And I tell my wife all the time, I met my wife in college. She was my chemistry lab partner. I didn't like her at first because she was so much smarter than I was, but she had an unfair advantage. Her mother was a teacher. She had good study habits. I had habits, but they weren't study habits. So my wife did exceptionally well, but again, she had an unfair advantage. Her mother was a teacher.
But you got married early, or you married her, and then you had kids and you have grandkids. So you were actually pretty smart to marry somebody who was smarter than you.
Yes, very much so. and
And how
still
is it
is.
to be, yeah, exactly. And how do you balance, because you're traveling so much, with being there for your wife, being there with your kids, your grandkids, to have a full life?
Well, it is a challenge, and you have to work at it. Being up here a lot, and we are up here a lot, and we travel a lot, is challenging. And then I've got grandbabies all over the country. I've got them in Charlottesville, Virginia, which is not bad from DC. It's only a couple of
Right.
hours outside of New Orleans and Atlanta. So it really is an effort to make sure that we touch everyone. And my wife is a professional babysitter now, but there's a balance. There's no question about that. Public service is important too. And I hope that's one thing that my children, my grandchildren learn, is just how important this is, because we need good people. You know,
We do.
people ask me all the time, what's the most surprising thing that you've learned since you've been a member of Congress? And the most surprising thing is also the most encouraging thing, and that is there really are a lot of good people up here. There are
Yeah.
really a lot of people up there for the right reasons and to
Yes.
move this country forward. And I think that gets lost in the media.
That's why for me this podcast is important, because it gives people an opportunity. You know, you on most news, or when we were on news, it's a soundbite. You get 2 minutes, you got to get all that information in. But we don't really have an opportunity to learn about the character or the heart or the home where you come from. And I know that when I grew up, Democrat or Republican, my mom knew people's history. She would tell us where they came from, where their family background was. And I always thought that was so interesting. And then as you know, as an adult, I was like, wait a minute, we're entrenching, we're not talking. And that's why I thought this was a great, and I started this about a year ago thinking, how do we talk to people? Because I didn't, I wouldn't have known anything. And you went to school, you studied pharmaceutical, you're a pharmacist, then you opened up pharmacies, and then you decided, okay, now I'm going to go and do public service. Can you talk a little bit about what that studying pharmacy, the pharmacy world and studying pharmaceuticals, and what that taught you about not only helping people, but then what you could do as a leader?
Well, that's a great question, and you know, and I mentioned a little while ago that I learned to be a star football player, and it
Yeah.
just didn't work out. I promised my dad after my 2 year in high school that if I didn't get any scouts to come look at me for college scholarships, that I'd get serious about a job. And I don't know what happened; they didn't show up. But anyway, so, but I got a job at a pharmacy, and as a delivery driver, and you know, it was just God's working in my life, because I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and that was it. It was healthcare. It was working with the public, which I'm obviously very extroverted and want to work with the public. And I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Went to school, got my degree. I was practicing pharmacy when I was still 21 years old, and was able to get out and start practicing pharmacy, and have been doing that. Was able to open my own business and had success business wise. So I want to give back to the community that's given so much to me, because I've lived the American dream, and this is important. And what we do with Congress is important. I try to stress to my staff all the time. For many people, we're the last resort. We're the last hope that they have of getting a situation resolved. And we need to take that very seriously, and we do. You know, I learned in management long ago. It's not real difficult. All you do is surround yourself with good people and let them go at it.
Right.
We've been very fortunate to have good people.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really a people business. That's the interesting, it's really helping people. What is the best advice you've ever received, or perhaps the worst advice you've ever received?
One of the Congress, both of them. No, no. You know, the best advice I think I've ever received is just from, again, my dad had a big influence in my life. And, you know, he always wanted me to succeed. He always wanted me to do better. And, you know, look, he had a great career. He worked shift work in paper mill, which sounds like, I say that in a degrading way. It's not. That's an honorable trade and an honorable job. And he worked hard, and he was very talented, and a carpenter, and did a lot of good work. But I think just, you know, his encouragement really was the advice that helped you the most. The worst, I don't know. I don't. That's a good question. I don't know what the worst advice I've ever got. might be some stock buys that I could tell you about.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay. Well, let me ask you this. I'm going to switch now and go into some of these rapid questions. And if you think about advice at some point, just jump in. And they're
Yeah.
easy questions, but feel free to answer however you feel. But I think it's just a nice way for people to get to know you on your likes and maybe dislikes. What is your favorite sound?
My favorite sounds, my grandchildren,
Yeah,
just hearing them, to be around them, and when I hear them, that's my favorite sound.
it's a very nice one. What is your favorite color?
Red, ganache,
Okay, go dogs. And your favorite scent or smell?
chocolate chip cookies.
That's not a bad one. Especially when they're cooking, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Who is your biggest cheerleader?
who is or was?
Oh, you could do both. Who was, who
Well,
is?
my dad was my biggest
Yeah.
cheerleader. He always encouraged me, and he was always I was always trying to impress him and please him. And but my biggest cheerleader now and is probably my whole life.
Very nice. If you were to have one meal, got stuck on a desert island and the genie said you get one meal, what would your favorite meal be?
No question about it. My wife's spaghetti. I mean, it's just great.
What kind of
And she
sauce?
says it's the easiest thing for her to make, but I just love.
Do you still exercise? Do you have time to work out and do things?
I do 500 push-ups every morning.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I do it in 30 minutes. I get up every morning here at the Capitol. And then this morning, I get up every morning here at the Capitol. I'm in the gym by 5 o'clock, and I'm doing push-ups at 5:05. So from 5:05 to 5:35, I do 500 push-ups. And then I do some more exercises after that.
That is amazing. Do you listen to music while you do it, or do
I
you just do
do.
it?
I do.
So what's on your playlist?
70s music. I'm a child of the 70s. It was the greatest decade for music ever. And
Yeah.
I'll debate that forever, but it didn't just any 70s music. I'm a big Billy Joel fan. I named my oldest son Joel. Eagles, Allman Brothers, all of them. Elton John, I just love.
Great. I like this to ask this question, and it kind of gets revealed through the answers before. But what if you were to say is your superpower?
My superpower, I think, is just my faith and my faith in God. And God has truly blessed me. I had an experience this morning that really, I appreciate the opportunity to share this, but I had one of my colleagues called in a couple of us to let us know that he's got a brain tumor. And he could have really, been down, but he wasn't. And he shared it with us. And I just felt so honored that he would entrust me with that. He's very strong and he was very positive and it was quite encouraging.
Yeah, it's a beautiful look, and this is what it's about. It's like having the
It
authentic
is.
relationships and being able to reach out to your friends, your colleagues, but people that you trust. I think just being able to do that shows his strength, and then him being able for you to listen gives him the strength, which is beautiful. I'm
Yeah.
sorry to hear the story, but there's something very special about it.
Yeah.
Well, on that one, I'm going to ask you, I also understand you like to hike and hang out outdoors and hunting and being in the nature. And do you have opportunities to do that and just to kind of get away?
Well, I'm more of a fisherman than I am a hunter, and
Okay.
I really do like to get outdoors. I mean, having grown up on the coast of Georgia, it's the most beautiful area in the world, and some of my fondest memories growing up were fishing with my dad,
Yeah.
and we just recently bought a house on the water, our dream home. So
What kind of fish do you forget? What kind of fish are you fishing for?
we're on the saltwater. We're on the redfish and trout. So that's really what we fish for.
Yeah, that's lovely. And do the kids fish with you, grandkids?
They do. And
Yeah.
my wife, and I talked to her last night, and she was saying, "Oh, I just bought a couple of crabs by the dock. We got to get some chicken necks and go crabbing." So
That's nice. So like a date would be with your wife could be going crabbing.
yeah, it could be.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay, so I also would love to just know if you and your wife could go anywhere in the world, just the two of you, where would you love to go on vacation with each other?
Probably anywhere we could go fishing. She loves fishing too, and
She does.
she's an outdoors person as well.
Nice, nice. So my last question that I love to ask each person, and answers can be anything, but they've been beautiful, is about joy. And I know we've touched on your faith and why you serve and why you want to be there, but if you could talk specifically about what joy means to you and what brings you joy, and then how you share that joy to give others happiness and their joy, and to also feel like connected.
There was a time in my life when I thought that the greatest joy a person could possibly experience was the joy of being loved. Until one day I realized that the greatest joy a person can experience is the joy of giving. It really is joyous. And just to be able to give love and to show love to people is just the greatest joy I think anyone can ever experience.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I want to say thank you first for really being here. You really touched me, and I've given me a lot to think about today. And I appreciate your love for your state, for the South, and for your family, and for the people. And I really hope that everyone who's listening can, just hear the authenticity of why you go and you leave home, and you're out of your house and in the Capitol and traveling and doing so much. And it's kind of like what you were saying, it's what gives you the joy is to help others and to show others. And what I also love is just that what we basically share, and this is really my purpose, is we all share common humanity and a common ability to hear each other, listen to each other, and share. And so I just want to thank you for this opportunity, and I hope to see you in person soon. But in the meantime, I just want to thank you and really appreciate you and what you do, and having this opportunity to learn more about you.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed this.
Hi, it's Liz. Please join me every Tuesday for coffee to talk about heart and humanity with our elected leaders. Remember to hit subscribe to get an alert when a new episode is live and for exclusive content. Ciao.